and welcome to Public Policy Square. I'm your host, Annette Sorensen. I have here joining me today Dr. Brian Rubin to discuss the new art of geopolitical freelancing. Dr. Rubin, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you so much, Annette. It's my pleasure to be here.
So I wanted to begin by asking, in your recent article for the 16th Council, you mentioned geopolitical freelancing as a recent trend in global politics. What does this
Yes.
term mean?
All right. Geopolitical freelancing refers to the practice where nations, especially middle powers, abandon rigid alliances and choosing transactional, situational partnerships to advance their interests, wherever those interests might be. Could be trade, could be defense. So look at it this way. It is like a pay-as-you-go model for foreign policy. So countries now make deals based on immediate benefits, not necessarily ideological alignments or long-term commitments. And it's pragmatic and unencumbered and frankly quite self-serving. That's what geopolitical freelancing means.
I see. And how does this represent a shift from the past global order?
Okay, so previously, geopolitics resembled something like a chessboard. Really, you were either aligned with the West or with the East. So the Cold War kind of made that binary. After the Second World War, institutions like NATO, the UN, sought to codify a rules-based order, right? That's a term we're very familiar with, a rule-based international order. But today, the world looks more like a poker table. Everyone plays their hand, bluffs falls when necessary. Trust is more like transactional, and strategy seems more short-term, and loyalty is honestly very negotiable today. That's what you see. Look at what's going on, and I believe we can go in a little bit more of details in the course of this conversation. Look at the recent visit of President Donald Trump to Saudi Arabia. Look at the relations, the relationships being built. You look at even India and a whole lot of other countries that we can talk about. But it's a complete departure from what we've known international relations to be like.
Okay, I see. And that takes me to my next question, which was about Trump's handshake with Syrian president on May 14th. What do you believe this represents?
That's it's a rupture. that gesture shattered every illusion of ideological consistency in Western foreign policy. All right. Al-Shara, once a symbol of Syrian resistance, now being courted by Washington. It signals that the US, under Trump, is unapologetically embracing the freelancing model that we're talking about. It's one can easily argue that it legitimizes the Assad's political legacy through his successor. So the handshake told the world, if you serve our current interests, we will talk, no matter what your past looks like. That's what it looks like. That's what it seems to represent. And it is what it is, really, but this is it.
And how have we seen this freelancing model reflected in Saudi Arabia's deals recently?
Again, Saudi Arabia has mastered that the freelancers playbook. They deal with China for tech, they deal with Russia for oil coordination, and America for security, without fully aligning with any, right? So they can deal with any of those groups without necessarily aligning. And so look at it this way. The Riyadh Yuan oil settlement in I believe that was April 2024, as an example. That's a very sharp pivot. but they still purchased for about 4.3 billion or thereabouts um, in American arms last year, right? $4.3 billion, right? Now it is balancing, not begging, right? They keep themselves indispensable by keeping everyone close, but nobody too close. It's like kind of saying, I belong to everyone, and I don't belong to anybody. That's more like what that looks like. And so they maintain these robust defense ties with the US, but then they also working with China, cutting Russia on oil production through OPEC. And at the same time, they lead Islamic solidarity initiatives. Now, you understand that. So Saudi Arabia is not picking sides. It's picking strategies case by case. The kingdom is not just an American client state, is autonomous, an autonomous actor, so to say, playing the great powers against each other and extracting concessions from all. So that's the geopolitical freelancing that we're talking about, really, in display.
I see. And how has Turkey done the same recently?
Mm-hmm. Now, under Erdogan, right, and now under the coalition, Turkey has, Turkey has made geopolitical freelancing a state doctrine, so to say. Ankara is still a NATO member. It bought Russian S-400 missile systems, which are incompatible with NATO hardware. That's like playing for football, teams at once, playing both football teams, at once. So you are playing team NATO, you're playing team Russia at the same time. In 2025, they hosted both Ukrainian and Russian delegations for secret peace talks, while also continuing its drone sales to Kiev. It has managed to be both a mediator. I mean, how do you even reconcile that, right? You're selling arms to one group, you're at the same time, trying to be a mediator. All right. So they're balancing both. They're balancing both, and this balancing really boosts Turkey's profile and gives it immense leverage. Turkey understands something vital in a fragmented world. Being useful to all is more profitable than being loyal to one. So that's what you see with Turkey. Same geopolitical freelancing. So when people talk about Donald Trump as not being committed to alliance, to allies, being committed to the idea, to certain ideals, Trump is just one person doing that. Maybe his is maybe much more pronounced, but it's happening. I mean, we just talked about Saudi Arabia. We're talking about Turkey right now. So that's for Turkey. So it's more than the United States.
Right, I see. We've also seen India embrace a similar strategy recently.
Exactly. That's correct.
Yes.
That's
So
correct.
what has India recently been doing that also represents geopolitical freelancing?
Oh yeah. That's absolutely correct. India has, as a matter of fact, India has perfected non-alignment, non-alignment strategy, right? So they are part of the US-led Kurds, right? And actively engage in defense cooperation with Washington. Yeah, at the same time, they buy record amounts of discounted Russian oil and build digital infrastructure using Chinese equipment. So India clearly doesn't see a contradiction in this, because in their own worldview, national interest trumps ideology. Their foreign policy is guided by strategic autonomy. The West needs India to counter China. Russia needs India's market. China wants access to Indian consumers. India uses this web of dependencies to advance its own agenda: economic growth, regional dominance, and global recognition. So India has become indispensable, right? And that's the freelancer's ultimate goal: be indispensable.
I see. And what are the benefits of this strategy for countries? Why do you believe that we've seen this model become so prevalent in recent years?
Okay, a couple of issues. The first is freedom. That's the most obvious advantage. Countries are no longer tied down by ideological constraints or moral posturing. They can now make decisions quickly, change direction when necessary, and extract maximum value from relationships. Again, it enhances sovereignty. States don't have to wait for consensus in Brussels or Washington to act. They can strike their own deals, shape their own regional dynamics, and act in real time. And then you have strategic leverage, right? And that's a freelancer can say no and walk away or pivot. Now that's power. Traditional alliances often require compromise. Freelancers play to win. You see, so that brings real advantages. So I've talked about freedom, then sovereignty. It enhances sovereignty, and then finally, I also mentioned it grants strategic leverage. The freelancer can just act in their own best interest. All right, those are the advantages of freelancing.
And are there any drawbacks?
Of course, there are drawbacks. If anything that has advantages must have its downs as well. Begins with the fact that it breeds mistrust. If everyone is transactional, how do you rely on who do you rely on in a crisis? How do you rely on people who can be trusted, right? Allies are no longer allies, they are temporary partners. They are very they are there when they have something to gain from you. That's very unstable foundation for global peace. Secondly, small states suffer. Countries without economic or military leverage cannot freelance. They are forced to align, and in a fragmented world, they are often ignored or exploited. The third one is values decay. You see, in freelancing, geopolitics, human rights, democracy, and international law becomes bargaining chips, not principles. You see, imagine where human rights becomes a bargaining chip, right? That's what happens, right? You see, values becomes weaponized. So that's a decay. That corrodes the moral authority of the global system. So these are very serious, the downsides of geopolitical freelance.
And do you believe that we will continue to see geopolitical freelancing in the next few years? Will this model continue to shape country relations?
Absolutely, Annette. This is not stopping. For the foreseeable future, yes. The world is not returning to neat alliances anytime soon. The freelancer model is more aligned with our current era, fast-paced, multipolar, digitally interconnected, and ideologically fragmented world. So in the next decade, we will see floating alliances, temporary issue-based conditions that dissolve as quickly as they form. We will also see private diplomacy, corporate actors, AI platforms, city-states shaping deals, directly. And one of my podcasts recently, What the World is Watching, I did mention that tech CEOs, are becoming like shadow diplomats. We'll see more of that. Eventually, we may see a new recalibration, a new Bretton Woods, or a descent into pure chaos. The freelancer world is dynamic, there is unstable, and instability always invites recalibration. But for now, freelancing is not just a trend, it's the new order.
Right, I see. And do you have any final remarks?
Yes, I do have final remarks. And I will say, the age of geopolitical freelancing is not just a phrase. It is a structural shift in how power is negotiated. Alliances and how alliances are formed. and how national interests are pursued. So in this new world, adaptability is the highest currency and strategic loyalty is dead. What matters is leverage, speed, and utility. For Africa and much of the global south, this new dynamic offers both peril and possibility. The absence of rigid global blocks creates room for assertive diplomacy, creative alignments, and national reinvention. But it also requires clarity of purpose and leadership with foresight. Freelancers win by being indispensable, not by being loud. The same holds true for nations. So in this era, those who understand how the game is played, not those who claim to outdated loyalties, will shape the future.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me here today. That was Dr. Brian Rubin discussing geopolitical freelancing. I'm Annette Sorensen, your host for Public Policy Square. Thank you for joining.